They are the insiders, Bob McKenzie, Pierre LeBrun, and Darren Dreger. Guys, ordinarily at this point of insider trading, we start with the obligatory, what's the latest on the William Nylander front? But we're going to deal with the only other remaining RFA, Nick Ritchie. What's the latest there?
Well, the situation with Nick Ritchie and the Anaheim Ducks has been really from the get-go. It's been mostly a frigid process, but it looks like it's starting to thaw. Now, the deal is not done, but it does look like it's warmed up considerably to the point where there's a real possibility this could be done in the next number of days, certainly sometime this week, so long as there are no further hiccups. So there's obviously been a breakthrough of sorts. It's expected to be a 3-year deal for Nick Ritchie, assuming it gets consummated here in the next day or two or three.
All right. Kasperi Kapanen really on fire playing with Austin Matthews. Not surprisingly, the guy's doing okay. He's got 4 goals, 8 points in the games that he's played with Austin Matthews. Has this now added an extra little twist to Kyle Dubas and company as they try to get the contracts worked out in Maple Leaf land?
Well, the potential is there, Gino, based on, again, the numbers that Kasperi Kapanen is putting up on the wing with Austin Matthews. So he's looking after the opportunity that he has with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as luck would have it, he has a second contract that he's going to have to deal with at the end of the year. If he's a 40, 50, maybe a 60-point guy at the end of this season, he could be looking for upwards of $5 million. But they're not at that stage yet. What it means, though, is that somebody is going to have to go. If it's not William Nylander, assuming that he comes in, he signs, bridge deal or otherwise, if it's not Kasperi Kapanen because they find a way to keep him, somebody's got to go from a cap perspective. So good problems to have because the Maple Leafs are a good team with both those players in-house.
And in the meantime, with the Leafs scoring like the 1980s Edmonton Oilers, I think at first blush people look at William Nylander in his situation and say, well, he's lost all leverage. They can score and win without him. I guess you could say that. On the other hand, I think it's my understanding that it probably strengthens their belief that they're trade bait because, in fact, they can win and score goals without him, and yet they still have trouble defending. So that's been a belief from the get-go and a fear from the Nylander camp that they can't get a no-trade clause, of course, so will they be dealt if they sign? So because of that, I think it's becoming more imperative than ever for Nylander that if and when he signs a contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs, that it's a contract he can live with, not just in the Leafs puzzle, but also if he ends up with that contract on another team.
Kyle Dubas has made it pretty clear, though, he does not want to move William Nylander. But are teams keeping track of what's going on just in case?
Oh, are they ever? And listen, even as of today, I had 2 other teams tell me that, again, their understanding from the Leafs is that Kyle Dubas does not want to move Nylander. But as we get closer to December 1st, when Nylander, if he remains unsigned, can no longer play in the NHL this season, that's an asset that the Leafs have to make a decision on, and maybe the Leafs change their stance, and that's where teams are hoping to act. Carolina, to me, is a team you got to keep an eye on, because all of the teams that I think have interest in Nylander, the Hurricanes are as deep on defense as any of those teams. I mean, I think they have 5 top 4 defensemen, and a guy that I think the Leafs would have interest in, if it ever goes down this road, lots of ifs, would be Brett Pesce, who has a 6-year deal at just over $4 million a year, a cap-friendly deal, and is a young top 4 defenseman.
I'm not going to suggest the Boston Bruins have interest in a forward of Nylander's ilk and the kind of money he would command, but are they looking for some help up front?
Yeah, I would say that it's a back burner search for Don Sweeney and the Boston Bruins. Now, the Bruins have to compete with the big boys, and they should be considered one of those in the Eastern Conference alongside the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tampa Bay. And you look at some of the other top teams in the East, they fit right into that dynamic. So they'd like to add an experienced forward, preferably a center, and maybe dangle one of their young guys. Anders Bjork's name is potentially out there, and likewise Danton Heinen. Not saying that those players are being shopped, but maybe there's a team that has experienced forwards that they want to swap out with a younger, more inexpensive player.
In other news, Los Angeles-based agent Pat Brisson has been in Toronto for the last number of days. Not a big surprise. He represents John Tavares, Jake Gardiner, amongst others on the Leafs. But what is interesting is that Brisson and Ottawa Senator General Manager Pierre Dorion did break bread a little bit today. The obvious point of discussion there, and it's very, very preliminary, is Matt Duchene's future. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. He's eligible for an extension anytime now, unlike Mark Stone, who can't get one until January 1st. Lines of communication are open. Nothing more than that at this point.
It's still early, but obviously loads going on already. They are the insiders, Bob McKenzie, Pierre LeBrun, and Darren Dreger. It's insider trading.